Good morning and welcome to this short interview with Shaun Hipgrave, Director of Protect and Prepare from the Homeland Security Group, an initiative of the UK Government Home Office. Today we're having a quick discussion around the lead up to the Intersec Security Conference next year being held in Dubai. So thank you for your time today, Shaun. And perhaps you could kick off and tell the audience here a little bit about what you do with the Homeland Security role you're fulfilling.
Thanks, John. Yes, as the Director of Protect and Prepare in Homeland Security Group, which is a part of the UK Home Office, many of the customers to the show would know that as a Ministry of Interior. I'm part of the system that is responsible for delivering the counter-terrorism strategy for the UK. That's known colloquially as Contest. And that's set up of 4 Ps. Pursue and prevent are 2 of them, and I am director and responsible for the protect and prepare side of the counter-terrorism strategy. And all parts of my directorate are all responsible for delivering different parts of protect and prepare for UK against terrorism, but in some cases against hostile state threats.
Thanks, Shaun. And perhaps could you expand a little bit more about what Protect and Prepare means to the UK government?
So very specifically, where we have vulnerabilities in the UK against terrorism, we use Protect to mitigate those vulnerabilities. And many of the exhibitors and customers to the show will understand they're going to see products that are about mitigation to vulnerabilities like hostile vehicle mitigation, glass-proof windows, different physical protective security mitigations. And we do that with people, crowds, public locations. And prepare is, if there is a terrorist attack, how do we best plan and prepare to respond to that terrorist attack to ensure it has the minimum impact and our emergency services can quickly take control and respond to that terrorist attack? And that is done with the government, but also very much in partnership with private sector and the public as well. We call it a whole of society approach.
Thanks for that. And we note that the UK government recently made an announcement about a new Protect Duty bill. Can you perhaps expand, help us understand what's the aim of that and how does that sort of follow on to this holistic approach about sort of public-private partnerships?
So yes, only recently, this week, the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary has announced more details on the Protect Duty. The Protect Duty will now be called Martin's Law, and it's very much in response to the mother of one of the victims of the Manchester Arena bombing in 2017, Figan Murray, and her son Martin, and the campaign that she has been doing since that bombing. And it's an amazing campaign that's leading to this legislation. And what this legislation will do will mandate in law that those locations that the public have access to, and there's different exemptions and different varieties of those, but those that have a capacity between 100 and 799 are mandated to have someone responsible and understanding and trained in dealing with the response to a terrorist attack. And then those locations above 800 and above, and those are the locations like Manchester Arena or the big venues around the UK, they have to have a risk assessment and they have to take reasonable steps to respond proportionately to that risk assessment. So that legislation is being introduced next year. And very much that's a piece of legislation that requires the government, emergency services, security professionals, the private sector venue owners, and the public to work together to respond to our threat from terrorism.
So that sounds like a sort of an all-round, all-encompassing approach. And you mentioned their risk assessment. How do we sort of consider the risk assessment when we're looking at the current threat picture? So how would you sort of look at the influences around the current threat picture and how that may affect some of the outcomes?
So the protect duty is mainly aimed at terrorism, but in reality, the threats that we're facing, certainly here in the UK, are increasingly diverse and complex and dynamic. And whilst I can talk about the terrorist threat, and we can see that there are less pre-planned, organised terrorist groups now in the UK. It's more about the terrorist who is self-inspired, online, getting inspiration online, and then going out as in terrorist attacks. Quite low sophistication, using knives or weapons or explosives, and that's our diverse terrorist threat. But we also have a state threat that is much more organised, and unfortunately in the UK we've suffered those. We've always got the serious and organised crime threat, and I know some of the attendees at the show will be really interested in protecting their companies from organised crime threat. And that then leads into what is our most recent highest threat actor is cyber. And I know there's lots of exhibitors at the show talking about cyber protect as well. So it is very diverse. It comes in many different facets, and I'm just dealing with one bit around hostile states and counterterrorism, but it's much larger than that.
So when you mention hostile states, sort of what are some of the changes or perhaps evolution when we're tackling hostile state activity?
So the threats we face, and it's been well set out by the Director General of MI5 more recently in the UK press, are broad and complex, and hostile states obviously have more planning and skills and access to threat items that terrorists would normally have access to, and it's complex in how we respond to those hostile states, and it's certainly something that we're taking a lot of consideration of, and we're seeing the threat increase in recent times here in the UK, and really building our specialist response to that, both in a protect and prepare way, but in the way that we pursue those hostile states that create a threat to the UK domestic homeland.
So you mentioned earlier cyber. So where do you see the threat emanating from cyber?
So the UK government takes cybercrime seriously. We are actually got a good story to tell around what we do with the private sector in cyber in the UK. In fact, the most recent export figures have shown a significant rise in UK exports of cyber specialism, cyber capability. And we have the National Cyber Security Centre based here in the UK that really supports the private sector, the public and industry, and provides lots of positive guidance and messaging. But the thing that is most worrying is ransomware. And I think it would worry the owners of companies all around the world around the ransomware attacks, and have they got the proper mitigations in place to prevent those ransomware attacks and respond to them with their governments if needed.
So moving on to the actual event next year, the Intersec Security Exhibition Conference. What are you most looking forward to in your participation?
Well, there's a slight quirk here, John, because before I was in the civil service, I was in the private sector, and I think it was probably 2008, 2009. I attended as an exhibitor to Intersec in Dubai, I think 2 years on the run, and then I moved off into a different career path. It was fantastic, and it was fantastic back then, and I'm really interested to see how it's developed over the last 10 years I've seen the numbers that are expected at the show, the number of exhibitors and the number of attendees. And I just think it's a very international flavored show. I enjoy speaking to security professionals, and I know on the leadership panel that we'll be discussing in a few weeks' time, really interested to get to know some of the other panel members and understand some of their challenges. And I know a few of them already, but get out and meet some of the exhibitors who are at the show as well and see what they could contribute to UK security capability. So really looking forward to it. And as I sit here now on a rainy day in Kent, in England, you know, I'm really looking forward to a little bit of January sun in Dubai.
Well, there's plenty of sun certainly here in Dubai. So, you know, you have your own, I guess, UK's security and policing event coming up soon. Is that just another opportunity for you to engage with the private sector, or is it more than that?
It is an opportunity to engage with the private sector, not on the scale that Intersec is, but it is a government event, so it's more focused on working with other governments, other ministries of interior, other security professionals, and law enforcement agencies, and bring them in to have specialist conversations where we can sometimes speak in those classified areas that we can't normally do in public. But we will have 400 to 500 companies there. Really enjoy bringing different governments over and getting them to see UK capability and some of our government capability, which will have a big stand at security and policing.
So you just mentioned their capability and experiences. So no doubt you're going to have, I guess, a huge library of lessons learned. And what are the things that you can share around how the UK has learned from past incidents that we can look for, I guess, preventing further problems in the future?
Well, unfortunately, and I mentioned the Manchester Arena bombing in 2017, the inquiry to that has been publishing this year, and volume 1 to the inquiry recommended the Martin's Law, and we've been developing that. Volume 2 was very much around the preparedness response of the emergency services, and it's a very detailed dive into some of the problems we face as emergency responders to large incidents like that. We've also had the London Bridge recommendations as well, and the Westminster attack. So we use all those as iterative learning. It's not easy to change big systems. Doesn't matter whether it's UK or different organizations, but some of the really big themes that come out of it is around integration and collaboration. So, you know, the intelligence services working closer with policing, and policing working with the Home Office, and that's how we do deliver our counter-terrorism strategy with other different parts of government. On the emergency services, the police, the fire, the ambulance, all having a better engaged communication and working and practicing and exercising together to make sure we get it right when these awful things happen.
So you just mentioned there sort of testing and exercising in this multi-aid agencies, this combined response. Perhaps you could enhance our understanding on the importance of that, and perhaps what are the benefits for the private sector for enabling and assisting these sort of tests and exercises? So,
as I mentioned earlier, any incident that happens, whilst we have the emergency services who will respond, the first people who have to do something about it are the owners of those venues, those locations they're in, the public, in fact. And, you know, we provide lots of messaging around how we want the public to be alert, not alarmed, and how we want to prepare the private sector, both with providing good security solutions, but providing the advice and consultancy on how to respond to incidents like that. And we're delivering or have been delivering for many years in the UK something called JESIP, which is the Joint Emergency Services Interoperability Principles, which is how they should come together in response to a critical incident. And doing that with then an integrated response plan with public accessible venues or others makes the whole preparedness and the response to a critical incident or a terrorist attack, minimizing it, and it reduces the impact of that. So it's absolutely critical, and we will always promote working emergency services, government, and the private sector working together.
Look, fascinating, and I'm sure we're going to hear more about it when you're arriving here in Dubai for the Intersec conference. Thanks again, Shaun, for your time, and thanks again for our audience for listening. And we certainly look forward to seeing you all at the conference, and we look forward to seeing Shaun and on stage and giving us more of his wisdom. So thanks again, Shaun, for your time today.
Thanks, John. I'm looking forward to it.